I used to think balance was possible, that some people could be lightning and others could be the ground they strike. My name is Sean. I'm 36 years old, a marine biologist based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. I live alone in a quiet little apartment above a kayak rental shop, and most days, my biggest thrill is watching tide charts and feeding the grouper in our lab tank. So yeah, you could say I lead a quiet life. Then came Ava. We met at a fundraiser for coastal restoration. I was doing a presentation on coral bleaching, speaking to a crowd that mostly cared about the catered wine and Instagrammable views. She was different, or so I thought. She asked a question about marine ecosystems but delivered it with a kind of sparkle that made the whole room turn to listen. Confident, radiant, a little chaotic. Somehow she chose me. At first, it was magic. Where I was cautious, she was impulsive. Where I hesitated, she jumped. I remember thinking, maybe this is how I get pulled into something brighter. For 5 years, we spun around each other, the grounded man and the woman who always seemed to be soaring. And in the beginning, the contrast was charming. But over time, that charm started to fray. Ava liked attention. She could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with everyone's phone number, 3 new inside jokes, and a standing brunch invitation. I watched it happen 100 times. She turned every dinner party into her own little one-woman show. I used to sit quietly beside her, nodding and sipping my drink while she told stories, most of them with me as the reluctant punchline. There was one night at a university dinner I just presented on deep-sea nutrient cycles, and she told the table that dating a marine biologist was like living with a human sponge who talks to fish. Everyone laughed, including me. Kind of. That was Ava's thing. She could cut you down with a smile and leave you unsure whether to be flattered or offended. She joked a lot about my job. Fish boy, she called me sometimes. Or Professor Seaweed. If I was slow to make a decision, she'd elbow me and say, "Here he goes, overthinking again." She'd say it in front of people, laughing like it was all harmless. And maybe it was. But over time, those jokes stopped feeling funny. They felt like little digs with glitter on top. Did I say anything? Not really. I just sit there, press my tongue to the roof of my mouth, and let it pass. I told myself she meant well. That maybe I was too sensitive. I chose peace over conflict. Again and again. That's the thing about Ava. She never raised her voice or broke anything. But she chipped away joke by joke, jab by jab, until I didn't recognize how small I'd started to feel beside her. Back then, I still believed we were a good match. That if I could just be a little less rigid, a little more relaxed, it would work. I didn't realize then that what I called compromise was just me getting quieter and quieter. Until I almost disappeared. It was my uncle's retirement party that shook something loose in me. A Saturday afternoon in April, one of those mild Carolina days where everything smells like barbecue smoke and cut grass. Ava had insisted we go, not because she was close with my uncle, but because she loved any excuse to be charming in a new crowd. We were out in his backyard, surrounded by folding chairs, paper plates, and cousins I hadn't seen since I was in braces. Someone brought out a sheet cake. A few beers deep, my aunt raised her solo cup and said, "Well, now you've got time to finally enjoy the grandkids." That's when it happened. Someone turned to us, grinning. "So when are you two gonna give your folks something to spoil?" The group laughed lightly. It was a harmless joke, the kind people toss around without thinking. But for some reason, it hit me like a slap. Ava smirked. "Oh, if Sean ever loosens up, maybe." She patted my shoulder like I was a shy intern at her office. The crowd chuckled, then the conversation moved on. But I didn't. I just stood there, half listening to someone talk about retirement accounts while that comment lodged itself somewhere deep under my ribs. On the drive home, Ava was humming to herself, scrolling through photos on her phone. "Do you ever think about it?" I asked suddenly. She glanced up. "About what?" "Kids. The future. That kind of stuff." She shrugged. "Maybe. I don't know. We've got time, right?" I nodded, but something had already shifted. Because it wasn't really about kids. It was about everything. About the way she answered questions for both of us. About how she always made me the setup for her jokes. About how I couldn't remember the last time I felt like her partner instead of her prop. That night, I watched her tell a story to her friends over dinner, one of her greatest hits, the time I got seasick on a boat tour and puked over the side. "My brave marine biologist," she said, tossing a wink at the table. Laughter. And there I was again, smiling through it, feeling like a ghost in my own story. That's when I realized I wasn't building a future. I was surviving one. It was a Wednesday night when I finally said something. I remember because the weather had turned, and there was a damp chill in the air that made everything feel heavier. Ava and I had just finished dinner. Pasta and a salad she mostly pushed around her plate. The TV was on, muted. She was scrolling through her phone, laughing at something I couldn't see. I sat there watching her, heart pounding in my chest like I was preparing for a courtroom cross-examination instead of a simple conversation. "Ava," I said softly. She didn't look up. I need to talk to you about something." That got her attention. She glanced up, thumb still mid-scroll. "Oh, that sounds serious." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "It's about how you talk about me, in front of other people." Her eyebrows lifted. "What are you talking about?" "I mean the jokes," I said. "The stuff you say when we're out with friends. Like the fish boy thing. Or the way you—" I paused. "The way you turn my work or personality into a punchline." She blinked at me. "Are you serious?" "Yeah," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I am. I know you're joking, and I know it's not meant to be cruel, but it wears on me. It makes me feel small." Ava leaned back in her chair and let out a short laugh. "Sean, come on. You know I'm just messing around. That's how I joke. Everyone knows that." "I know," I said, "but it's still about me, and it still hurts." She looked at me for a moment, then shook her head and smiled like I was being adorable and ridiculous at the same time. "You're being dramatic," she said. That stung more than I expected. "I'm not trying to fight," I said quietly. "I just wanted to be honest. I let a lot of it go, but it's starting to feel like you don't actually see me. Not the way I need to be seen." For the first time, her expression softened. The smirk dropped. She looked down at the table, tracing a water ring with her finger. "Okay," she said finally. "I didn't know it bothered you that much. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way." I nodded. "Thank you." She stood up, walked over, and kissed the top of my head. "I'll try to be more mindful," she said. "You could have told me sooner." And just like that, the conversation ended. No fireworks, no hug-it-out moment. But for the first time in years, I felt like I'd actually said something real. And she actually heard me, or at least I wanted to believe she did. After that night, things got better. Not perfect, but better. Ava toned it down, noticeably even. The first weekend we went to dinner with friends. She didn't say anything about fish boy or joke about my spreadsheet obsession. When someone brought up wedding plans, she didn't roll her eyes and say, "If I left it up to Sean, we'd get married in a parking lot with matching clipboards." She just smiled, squeezed my hand under the table and said, "We're thinking coastal, something small and meaningful." That night, I drove us home in silence, letting myself believe we'd turned a corner. She rested her head on my shoulder at a red light and said, "You were right, by the way." I didn't realize how much I leaned on humor to, I don't know, control a room, I guess. I didn't say anything right away, just reached over and ran my thumb along the back of her hand. That small softness in her voice, I held onto it like driftwood in open water. The next few weeks felt like what I imagined normal couples did. We picked a wedding venue, a quiet coastal town where I'd done field work years ago, with windswept dunes and a tiny chapel tucked behind tall grasses. Ava loved the idea of it. "It's so not what people expect from me," she said, laughing. "But maybe that's the point." We sat on the couch with open laptops most nights, building Pinterest boards and reading reviews on ecotourism packages for the honeymoon. She actually asked my opinion, like really asked. And when I said I'd rather explore quiet marine sanctuaries than all-inclusive resorts, she nodded and said, "Then that's what we'll do." It was the most included I'd felt in months, maybe years. She wasn't just tolerating my ideas. She was trying to understand them. At one point, I even caught myself daydreaming about her walking down the aisle, wind tangling her hair, eyes locked on mine. I pictured a different version of us, one where we made space for each other instead of competing for air. I started letting my guard down. I stopped bracing for the jab after every joke, the chuckle that landed like a paper cut. I let myself believe that growth was possible, that people could hear you, really hear you, and change. She even came by my lab one afternoon, bringing lunch for the whole team. She wore one of my old college hoodies and asked a grad student about his thesis like she was genuinely curious. When she left, one of the interns nudged me and said, "She's cool. You guys seem solid." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "We're in a good place." Because for a few weeks we were. The joke stopped. The air between us felt less sharp. We were planning a future, not dodging landmines. But even then, in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but wonder, was this who Ava was becoming, or just who she was pretending to be? I ignored the question. Because I really wanted it to be the first one. It happened at a wine tasting in the foothills just outside Asheville. One of Ava's old college friends, Brenna, was celebrating her birthday, and the whole event had that casual, sophisticated vibe Ava adored: linen jumpsuits, big sunglasses, Instagram boomerangs of swirling rose. I tagged along as always. The silent plus one. We arrived late. Ava made an entrance, flouncing in with her arm looped through mine, and that voice of hers turned up just enough to announce our arrival. "Sorry." He made me stop to look at a hawk or a leaf or whatever. She laughed, waving us through the vineyard gate. People chuckled. I smiled. Habit, I guess. The sun was low by the time we all gathered on the patio for one of those long, wine-soaked storytelling sessions. Everyone was loose. Someone brought up travel disasters, a delayed flight, a hotel without air conditioning, and then, almost predictably, Ava lit up. "Oh my God," she said, placing her wine glass down with a flourish. "Thailand. Our scuba diving trip. You guys have to hear this." I felt my stomach tighten. She looked right at me, grinning. "Remember, babe?" I gave a weak smile, already knowing what was coming. "So picture this," she began, already hamming it up. We're 20 feet under, and suddenly a tiny ripple of current hits us. I look over and see Sean, Mr. Calm, Mr. Deep Sea, completely panicking. There were scattered laughs. I mean, flailing like a wounded seal. He grabs the instructor, who, I should add, is about 16 years old, and starts, clinging to him like he's about to drown. She mimed it. Arms flapping, fake screaming. "Help. I'm not okay. Take me back to the boat." More laughter. Someone actually wiped tears from their eyes. And I'm just there, do I save my fiancé or do I enjoy the fish? Ava finished, beaming. The table erupted. And I sat there. Numb. It wasn't the story. I told it once myself, years ago, back when it was fresh and awkward, and we both laughed because we were still new. But the way she told it now, twisting it into a performance, making me a cartoon of fear, it felt cruel. Deliberate. I looked around the table. Everyone was still laughing. Not one person looked at me. Except Ava. She was still smiling. But not at me. At the attention. The applause. And in that moment, something inside me went cold. This wasn't just a joke. This was betrayal. A performance at my expense, broadcast to a group of people who didn't know me well enough to see the difference between self-deprecating humor and public humiliation. I didn't say a word. I waited until the laughter died down and the next bottle of wine was uncorked. Then I excused myself quietly and walked down toward the rows of vines, away from the patio, away from her. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the hills, trying to breathe through the burn in my chest. I wasn't embarrassed. I was done. I found her in the vineyard courtyard, leaning against the edge of a weathered barrel planter, wine glass still in hand. The glow from the patio lights didn't reach this far, but I could still make out her face, that easy smile she wore when she knew she'd nailed a story. She didn't look up when I approached. "You really think that was funny?" I asked. She turned, a little startled, then rolled her eyes. "Sean, come on. Don't start. I'm serious." Her mouth twitched like she couldn't decide if she should be amused or annoyed. "It was a joke. Lighten up." Everyone was laughing. "I noticed," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "That's kind of the problem." She sipped her wine and looked off toward the vineyard rows. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not like I said you wet yourself." I stared at her. "You turned something real, something that was hard for me, into a cartoon. You made me look like an idiot in front of a dozen people. And for what? A laugh." She scoffed. "It was one story. We've told that story before. Not like that." She crossed her arms. "Jesus, Sean, I can't win with you. First you tell me to stop making jokes about you, so I do. Then I slip once and suddenly you're acting like I betrayed you." "You didn't slip," I said quietly. "You performed." Her face went cold. "I didn't mean anything by it." "Yes, you did," I said. "You meant to make people laugh. To keep the attention on you. And if it came at my expense, that was just part of the act." "You're twisting this," she snapped. "No," I said, steady now. "I'm finally seeing it for what it is." There was a pause. The night had gone quiet around us. Somewhere far off, someone laughed. Probably at a new story, a new punchline. "You always do this," she said suddenly. "You wait until something small happens and then you pull out this whole victim narrative. Like I'm some villain. I'm not." I nodded. "Maybe not to yourself." She shook her head. "I can't deal with this right now." "I know." I stepped back. She watched me like she thought I'd say more. Like she expected an apology or another conversation to stitch things back together. But I didn't. I turned and walked away, past the rows of wine barrels, past the flickering lanterns on the patio, past the table where her friends were still laughing about something else entirely. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. She didn't call. Not that night, not the next day. I kept expecting some kind of message, a text, a voice memo, maybe a dry joke meant to smooth it all over. That was Ava's style. Avoid the direct apology. Slide right back into the rhythm like nothing happened. But this time, nothing came. Instead, 3 days later, I got a calendar reminder she had sent weeks ago. Call with florist, final arrangement decisions. I stared at it on my screen for a long moment. Then I closed the laptop and sat in silence. I thought I'd feel more angry, or more heartbroken, but I didn't. I just felt done. That night, my phone buzzed. Ava. Her name lit up the screen, and for a second, I thought maybe she'd had a change of heart. Maybe she'd finally decided to have a real conversation. But the message was short. "We need to confirm catering. They said we're past the deadline for the second deposit." No hi. No, are you okay? No mention of what happened at the vineyard. Just wedding logistics. Like nothing had unraveled. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, "We're not getting married." There was a pause. Then the 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then a long message came in all at once. "Are you kidding me? Over what? A stupid story. You said you wanted to move forward. You can't just throw it all away because your ego got bruised in front of strangers. This is dramatic and selfish." Another one followed right after. "I've already paid deposits on half this stuff. People have bought plane tickets. My mom already ordered her dress. Are you seriously doing this right now?" I replied, "Yes, this is not a momentary decision. It's the result of 5 years of being laughed at, minimized, and overlooked. I'm not doing it anymore." There was silence for a while. Then one more message came through. "Wow, you're not who I thought you were." I put my phone face down on the kitchen table. I didn't reply. A day later, she sent back the ring. No note, just a padded envelope dropped off by courier with my name scribbled in her handwriting on the label. I held the box in my hand for a moment before tucking it into the drawer beneath my winter socks. Like something I wasn't ready to look at yet, but didn't quite want to throw away. Then the real work began. Canceling the venue, refunding what could be refunded, calling her parents to explain. I kept it simple. It didn't work out. It's over. I didn't owe them more than that. I told my own parents over the phone. My mother just said quietly, "I wondered if this might happen," and then asked if I needed her to come down for the weekend. I said no, because for the first time I wasn't looking to be fixed. I had finally stopped waiting for Ava to become someone she was never going to be. In the weeks that followed, I cleared out the remnants of a life I'd been building in theory. I canceled the rentals, refunded what I could from the catering, and called the travel agency about the eco-tour honeymoon we never booked. The dress was already paid for. Ava kept it. I didn't ask for the money back. I didn't want anything from her. Not even that. Word got around slowly. I started getting messages, the kind people send when they don't know what to say but feel like they should say something. "Hey man, sorry to hear about the wedding. You doing okay? Just heard. Hope you're holding up." Everyone was kind, courteous, distant, which was fine. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted quiet. I went back to the lab, took on more shifts, spent long hours cataloging samples that didn't need to be cataloged. There was something comforting about the repetition, logging data, feeding tanks, watching tiny ecosystems do what humans never could, balance themselves. I started diving again on weekends, just me and the water. No audience, no one waiting on shore. Just the sound of my own breath inside the regulator and the stillness of the world below. And you know what? I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her, the version I used to carry in my head, the one that smiled at me like I was enough, the one I thought I could grow with. But the real Ava, the one who needed a stage even if it meant I had to be the joke. I didn't miss that at all. What surprised me more than anything was how light I felt. Like I'd taken off a jacket I didn't realize I'd been wearing for years. Heavy, scratchy, stitched together with all the times I said nothing, all the nights I laughed when it hurt, all the swallowed feelings I mistook for strength. Turns out, it's not strength to endure disrespect. It's not maturity to accept being quietly diminished. It's not love if it requires you to disappear. I'd spent 5 years convincing myself that being patient was a virtue. That if I just let things slide, eventually she'd stop aiming her sharpest lines at me. That peace was better than conflict. That walking on eggshells was just part of the deal when you love someone bold. But I was wrong. Love isn't supposed to make you feel small. Now, on quiet nights, I find myself sitting on the porch with a book, or taking long drives along the coast just to watch the sky fade from gold to black. Sometimes I call my old friend Adam from grad school, and we laugh about ridiculous fieldwork stories. Other times, I say nothing at all. And that feels okay too. The truth is, the breakup hurt, but losing myself would have hurt more. And in the end, I didn't just walk away from a wedding. I walked back to myself.